Good morning, everyone, and welcome to webinar 6 of Integrated Marketing. I'd like to acknowledge that I'm delivering today's webinar on traditional lands of Kaurna people and that I pay respect to their elders past, present and emerging. What I'd like to do today, gaining feedback from students in the internal tutorials last week, was a bit more emphasis to go back upon the sections that you now need to look at from a product focus in the analysis sections to be able to help you compile and collate the data and filter that into the useful information to help you make your decisions in the marketing plan. So what I will do is review the sections of the analysis component, which is the first half of your individual marketing plan that you will be handing up after the study period break. I also had questions, so I'm going to start off today's webinar with answering questions like I promised in webinar 5. That webinar 6 this week, we're going to be driven by where is it that you're still unsure about how this experiential team-based course is unpacked and how you as a member of over 100 students that are interacting with the simulation is producing the algorithms that's enabling the data which stimulates the results of what you will be collating and writing about in your marketing plan. That's where the experience comes from, because the data that you'll be pulling out from the simulation is as a part or as a result or as a consequence of all the decisions that's made by product marketing managers that are competing within each of the industries. So the data that you're producing is very real world within context and scope of the simulation. Where I was with this was just to remind you of the 20% team engagement and decisions. So over the last 2 weeks, you've had an opportunity as a company, as a team, to produce a corporate strategic focus that you handed up last week. So where we are at the moment is that the majority of students or team members, product marketing managers within each team, should have a fairly solid understanding of the direction of your brand in terms of the company. Whether you are with Amazing Cars, Best Motorworks, Cool Cars, Driven Motor Co, or Efficient Motors, you should have an understanding of what is the purpose of existence of my particular company in that automobile industry. You should be familiar with the key words in the vision. You should be familiar with the themes in the mission statements in terms of how are you going to be able to achieve that vision via the mission statements. And you should now become better. So I'm not saying that you're an expert at this stage, but you should now become better at being able to make decisions at a product level that is aligned or parallel or within arm's reach of reaching the objectives of the company. So whatever decisions you are now making at an individual product level relevant to your car brand should be aligned in context of the company brand. And that is the reason for the formation of the journal entries that you're collating each week. Each journal entry that you will be submitting, and at this stage, we've asked every team to hold their journal entries, which is the weekly decision summary template. Each team hands up 1 per week, but you hold on to that at the moment while we are still struggling through the logistics of how we get those uploaded onto the current Adelaide University website. So just hold on to them because altogether, by the end of the study period, there will be 8 to submit. Each week, each team is collating them. Every team member is responsible for adding in their own line of objectives and then the actions that they want to take to meet those objectives and then they wait for the simulation to roll over, and then they document what happened as a result of their decisions and what can they do better next time. Why did things happen that way? And what if they could have thought about doing different decisions? So every week it's about improving on the decisions that you made last week and unlearning some of the behaviors that you can see that you've been making that are leading to results that are deviating away from your objectives. This is what you will be doing in real world, and this is the pattern of behavior that we are practicing within context of this course so that you become familiar with how to make business and marketing strategic decisions week to week. So by now, what we have is last week you handed up your corporate strategic focus. This week, you've now got the results of 2 years worth of decisions from round 1 and round 2. So right now it's like being employed in this company for 2 years. Now you're headed in the next direction. It should be very much more consolidated in terms of understanding. When I open up that StratSim, where do I go first to have a look at what happened to the results that I input last week and whether they were positive or negative, or how much the gap was between what you expected and where it turned out. That needs to be documented down in your weekly decision templates as you now head towards what happened as a result of decision round 2. Where did I go wrong? What if I could have made different types of decisions? And so that now you can set down, where do I want to go for round 3 decisions? So round 3 decisions is this week is still only just 1 year's round worth of decisions. It is not a double decision round week yet, but going forward in rounds 4 and 5 upcoming, that will be a double decision round next week. All right. So this week it's still, we are still providing the time for you to really think deeply about what decisions are you going to make for round 3 in terms of your objectives, and then inputting the decisions into the simulation in order to achieve those objectives. So this is one of the last rounds in this part of the study period before the break that the accelerator is not being put on yet for a double decision round. It's still a single live round decision, inputting decisions for round 3, and then having a look at the results after this Saturday, which is the 4th of April. All right. Whereas next week we kickstart a double decision round, which becomes more intense because it's 1 week, but 2 years worth of decisions, which will happen next week. You can see here, decision 4 and decision 5 happen within the same week of each other. So you need to be more on the ball with predictions and making your decisions at a more efficient rate. You won't have a whole week to dwell upon what happened last week. Where am I going to go next week? We're looking for a faster return on your decision making from next week so that then it prepares you for 5 years worth of results that you can then pull upon and extract to compile and complete your analysis section. I also wanted to remind you that of the 8 decision templates that you hand up, each of them are about 2 marks each, which accounts for 16 out of the 20 marks. And then the last 4 marks that we allocate is based on our observation, which is the teaching team's observation of your engagement and participation during class time. So in my class time, it's internal, which means students come and attend class, and the way I see they interact week to week. So I'm collecting systematic patterns of your presence, whereas in the online class, David and Oliver will be looking at your engagement in the online consultations that they have with the teams each week. That counts for the last 4 marks. So it's really important to remain engaged in this course from start until end. You will not be able to cram those 20 marks at the end of this course. So if I was to explain that in a visual format, you can see here that what you've done is you've already made decisions for round 1, period 1 and period 2. That's how you collated your data to formulate the corporate strategic focus that you handed up last week as a team. That will now sit in section 2 of your individual marketing plan. They will be marked within the next 2 weeks, and you will gain feedback from the marker about where you could have improved, and they will be marked compared to the other 4 submissions of the teams that you are competing with. So out of the 5 firms in the industry, you will get marked and rated based on both the rubrics out of the 10 marks out of the rubrics that you were asked in terms of the key assessment criteria, visions, missions, objectives, talking about your product portfolio within those 350 to 500 words. That's now been submitted. You now get a chance to improve upon that in your own individual marketing plan to improve your own grade. So your marketing plan from now until the end of next week, you will be focused on decisions for rounds 3, 4, and 5. So product marketing managers that are upgrading their products, major upgrades, they will also need to be factoring in for this to all happen hopefully by the end of week 5, so they've got data to work on. New product marketing managers, the analysis section of your marketing plan is going to be quite heavily focused on the existing data that's available from both the company and the current product portfolio of products that you already have in your company. So you'll be having a helicopter perspective. Your analysis sections will be focused on having an overarching look from top down and then seeing where is the opportunity of where you want to be launching the 4th product or maybe even the 5th product of the organization. All right, so new product marketing managers, you have a different tactical approach. Your approach is not the same as the existing product managers that are, okay, I'm just getting an indicator that says that my students can't currently see the graph that I'm showing, which is what I've been talking about here. This graph is now we are making decisions for year 3, ending this Saturday. And then next week, we'll be making decisions for year 4 and 5 so that we complete all the data that we need to collect in preparation to write the marketing plan about our own product brand. Your marketing plan is not about the company. Your marketing plan is about your own individual product and what's happened to your product from years 1 to 5, but you don't want to be talking about it week to week. You're going to be talking about the patterns that you've observed about your product in the analysis section. And then you will be making recommendations, which is what we call the synthesis, process for years 6, 7, and 8. You will be synthesizing recommendations and making informed decisions to make suggestions to the company about where your product is going to go with its product marketing strategy, pricing strategy, promotional strategy, and distribution strategy. So with promotion strategy, we also call that the mental availability or how salient your product brand is in the minds of the consumers that are buying your product. And then the distribution strategy, we also call that physical availability or how accessible is your product for the consumer to buy once they've already decided that they are going to go into the dealership to purchase that product. So this is the rubrics for your individual product level marketing plan. You can see at the top here, what is the company name? And this is your own individual brand about your own product. The entire marketing plan is very focused on your own product, apart from a couple of sections that you need to understand where the limits or the caps of the company are. For example, the corporate strategic focus, which is 10% of your marketing plan you've already done because you submitted that last week, and you will now have an opportunity when you get the feedback back to personally improve your corporate strategic focus. You can improve it with your fellow team members in the next couple of tutorials or online consultations if you're an online student, or you can just improve it yourself. So by updating and making it time relevant to your individual marketing plan. So that section basically can almost go word for word straight into section 2 here. The executive summary, we do that last. We do that right at the end. When you've got everything together, you compile your marketing plan, you come back and write a one-page executive summary, which takes out the highlights of every other section and puts it into the executive summary. That should be the most attractive section for a busy business person to read. And it basically highlights why should they continue to read the rest of your marketing plan. Okay, so that one we do last. Today, we're going to revise the situation analysis and what you can input into the industry, company, competitors, and customers sections of the analysis section of your marketing plan, and then how you synthesize and summarize that into a SWOT analysis. We'll also, if we have time, go through the points for you to look at. Once you've got your summary of the analysis sections done, how do you then make the recommendations for your marketing program? So the marketing program is the marketing plan because you're planning for years 6, 7, and 8 of your product. These sections have not happened yet. These periods have not rolled over yet. You are going to be writing about the prediction or the plan going forward. You've possibly all heard the saying, if you don't prepare a plan, then you plan to fail. So there is no way that you can fail in this course if you put in your effort of each week, making your decisions. And what we are doing now is putting you into practice mode of how do you prepare a plan about a particular brand? How do you forecast and predict the future of what you need to do in order for that brand to be successful? And the focus will be on the 4 P's of marketing: pricing, product, placement, and promotion. With product, we're looking about the minor upgrades and major upgrades of your product. With placement, we're looking at the distribution of physical availability. And with promotion, we're looking at the marketing, the advertising, and the social media effects of how to create mental availability. So it's once again coming all the way back to what you learned in marketing in first year course, but we're putting them now all into action about a real world product that you've been assigned to manage in context of a simulation. So the simulation puts it all into experiential mode because you are accountable now for the consequences of what happens as a result of your own decisions. So I hope that at this point in time, you're getting more familiar with why we've had to unpack this course the way we have so that you slowly get the feel and get the hang of the course. It was most important at the start that you understood how to run the simulation. At this point in the course, you are familiar with your fellow team members. And I know that you are familiar with your fellow team members because each week as I visit the teams in my class, most teams are grounded. There's no teams that actually want to swap team members, and they are all very synchronously working with each other. So yes, there's still a little bit of ironing out that I need to do for some teams that have only got 2 members. We have multiple teams in this course with only 2 members competing versus teams that have got 14 members. But I want you to think about that it's the quality of the team members and the quality of content and not to do with the quantity. Because with the quantity, if you have too many team members and not everyone is doing their job, then it's like driving a car with a flat tire. It's still not going to take you very far. All right. So focus on the resources that you have and doing the job and the objectives that you create in context of the resources that you have, because that is a lifelong learning lesson that you'll be taking away into industry with you. Now, so where are you at with with your decisions? You should have already finished period round 2, which means 2 years worth of decisions. And where are you going to go to next? so that we formulate decisions up to year 5 by the mid-study break. In your analysis sections, which is part 3 of your marketing plan, focus on your own product. I'm going to keep reminding you that because I do not want you to be one of 100 students that submits a marketing plan planning for failure, meaning that you are focused completely off scope and you're focused on something else other than your product that you're managing. So where are you at with your product? What's happened in the last 5 years? And what systematic patterns have you observed as you're collecting your results through the Team Weekly Decisions template? That is another reason for the documenting the cookie crumbs or the journal entries week to week, because the aim of better understanding the behavior of data is to see the patterns that are reoccurring. And you've been able to do that by collecting and collating your results and finding the patterns of behavior both in your consumer, the micro segments, and by undertaking market research, you're getting closer and closer to understanding what bundle of product in terms of interior styling, product and promotion, interior styling, so the interior, the styling, the safety, and the quality. So the ISSQ, interior, styling, safety, and the quality. Apart from those 4 things, you've also got the size of the product as well, and then the pricing of the product. So of those 6 attributes, where have you been able to achieve the bundle of attributes, which is the 5 attributes, as close as possible to to achieving the highest likability for your consumer micro segment, but also being able to charge it to them at the highest possible price. So what you're doing is you are maximizing product contribution margin for your company, but you're also offering value to the consumers by researching and upgrading your product so that you achieve the best bundle of likability, which is what you undertake through conjoint analysis testing. There is no crystal ball. There's no crystal ball that tells you exactly what to do. You have to fine tune each week, refine, fine tune, and upgrade each week to get the best outcome that continues to match what your micro segment wants, needs, demands, by giving them value, but equally charging them the highest possible price that you can without losing consumers and without undermining the competition. So then we have the 4 sections that are included in section 3A of your marketing plan. So put these into subheading topics and then start to input in right now, start to write data in those sections so that you don't procrastinate on writing up your marketing plan. You should have a familiarity now of the industry in which you're competing, and you can get that through the StratSim economic output and the news, the industry news in the StratSim environment. So when you go into market and click on the links for industry, you should be able to get StratSim economic environment and industry news, and the collection of that over the last few weeks. So by the end of when the StratSim freezes at the end of the round 5, you will have 5 years worth of industry news that you're going to be extracting the key highlights, the highs and the lows and the systematic patterns that you've observed in both the economic environment and the industry environment to write a small section about the industry news. Now, you also will be focused on your own individual product. What's happened with your product over those 5 years? Those that are new product marketing managers, you will be writing about what you've observed as the company or the product portfolio of the existing products so that you can then analyze where you're going to make your recommendation for the launch of your new product. You won't have all 5 years worth of data for your new product, like existing product marketing managers, but you will have data on the overarching product portfolio for your company so that that's what you will be writing about to highlight to the reader the reason why I'm recommending this new product for launch. And I don't know when you've decided to launch your new product. So you might have only 2 years worth of data, 3 years worth of data, or it still may have not launched yet by the time that all year 5 is up. And therefore you'll be writing about your existing product portfolio, so that in year 6, 7, and 8, there will definitely be the launch of your new product. Then you'll also be writing about what you've observed from competition. So this is competition directly that are taking away market share from your own car. The sales of your vehicle is impeded, or your market share is impeded by those that are selling directly to your micro segment, or those with exactly the same the same vehicle class as your vehicle. You've got a couple of market share quadrants to be working with there. And you need to think about all of this as part of data, and it's what you filter to have a look at in terms of who am I really competing with? Because there will be numerous segments that you will just continue to be observing. Are you competing with all those vehicle classes that are selling to your micro segment, which is one of the 5 consumer groups? Or are your competitors every single one of those vehicle classes from the other industries, no matter what micro segment they sell to, but they sell the same vehicle type as yourself? So whether you're a truck, whether you're a ute, whether you're an AEV vehicle, what competition are you do you consider that you're competing in relative to the rivals? You scope that position. This is your marketing plan. Within scope, you need to inform the reader. This is the competitors that you're focused on. You may have you may want to focus on both, because you see them both as observational parts that you need to be concerned about, that each week you're looking at how are you better able to analyze the competition so that you maximize your sales and your market share, no matter what you're looking at, whether it's just by looking at the customers or the micro segments that buy you, or whether it's the vehicle class, all the other cars, no matter which micro segment they sell to, but they have the same profile car as you. So therefore, you still consider them as competition, because it's still a loss of share of wallet, meaning that if a customer spends money on buying an automobile in that industry, that money, if it goes to somebody else, then it's still out of your pool of your product contribution margin. That's sort of how holistically the big funnel of competition can be considered. And then within context of writing the 3,500 words, and the specific situation analysis only allows for 20%. So if you multiply 20% by the 3,500 words, it should give you possibly around about 700 to 1,000 words to include in this section only of your marketing plan. So even doing the maths behind there, you know how much content to focus on so that it maximizes your results in this course. Also talking about your customers or the micro segments. So you will have a primary micro segment that your vehicle is serving, and then you will possibly have a secondary and a third micro segments that are also buying your car, possibly as a substitute vehicle. So if their vehicle class or their brand is not available in the market at the time of their need, possibly they will revert to your car in terms of a secondary market. So those secondary markets is a ripple effect of being also sustainable for your sales. So your sales may go to, for example, 50 or 60% of a particular family micro segment, but then you don't cut out the other micro segments, such as the value seekers or the enterprises, because if they're also buying your vehicle class as a second and a third, they're also worthy of consideration, because they make up the other 40% sales for your market. All right, so after you've considered, this is like putting a magnifying glass over all the parts that help achieve the best profit or the best product contribution margin for your car. I'm just mindful of the time. Now we go in to have a look at the industry section. So once again, we're still looking at the situation analysis and those 4 quadrants. The next few slides break up those 4 quadrants. So I won't read to you what's on the slide because I respect the fact that you're all adult learners and you can read for yourself. That the tips that I've put down in terms of the bullet points is now just breaking up those 4 sections that I've just overviewed in terms of if you want to better understand what to write for industry, ask yourself these questions and look at this section, the StratSim industry news and the economic outlook in StratSim. Only pull out data from StratSim because that is the scope of what we are using to write our marketing plan. We are not using resources in the actual real world. The global effects in the actual real world, what's happening in the United States, what's happening in the Middle East, what's happening in Europe, has no effect on what you're writing in your marketing plan, purely in context of StratSim only. All right, so I hope I've made that really clear because I will be getting questions and there will be some students who don't engage with these webinars and then they will write a marketing plan that's out of scope and not set themselves up for excellent achievement in this course. Please focus the real world context only within scope of StratSim. So when you're needing to find out further information to write about industry, which is the situation analysis, section A, part 1. So there's 4 parts to it that I overviewed on the previous slide. These next 4 slides break them up. It helps you with the tips to look at in StratSim to refine further information to supplement those parts. All right, so look at industry news and economic outlook for the last 5 years. This is by the time we end we end the live 5 rounds worth of decision making, and write about that in your industry section. The next section as well is when you're looking at the industry news is to be able to ask yourself these questions. Now, there is a familiar model called the PESTEL or PESTA analysis, which goes through political, ecological or economic, social, technological. And as I said before, if you talk about ecological as the second item, then you talk about economic factors as the last item. And some organizations use legal. Other organizations that are more culturally adaptive will use religious. So for context within StratSim only, there are only 3 of those acronyms in PESTEL or PESTA that are relevant. In producing a marketing plan, you never force theory into the real consequences of what you're doing. Theory and knowledge and wisdom is actually used to back up what you discover in terms of the problem that you're trying to solve. So in this particular case, the problem that I'm trying to solve for my product is generating a recommendation or a plan about year 6, 7, and 8, which are future years that haven't yet happened. How do I use the current data that I'm currently experiencing and to better understand that data so I can see of that data, what can I extract that's useful for my decision making so that I can best forecast and reduce wastage on making a marketing plan for year 6, 7, and 8 in context of the PEST analysis. So in context of the PEST analysis, I strip down all those things that aren't relevant. Political forces are not relevant. So that's the reason why I don't have the P here. Economic forces are relevant. So I'm going to talk about that in my industry news. Social or cultural forces may be relevant. Depends on what you've discovered in terms of your micro segment. So as you've been doing further and reading up on the micro segment that you serve, you may find changing trends or slightly changing trends in different consumer segments compared to what was written up as secondary data in the StratSim manual. The Stratsim manual provides a generic understanding of particular micro segments, but from now at the point in time that you've been serving them over the last few years, you may see a cultural shift or a slight change in those particular micro segments that you're serving. So that's what you're writing about in social. Also, you know the technology limits of your brand, your company brand the most from your corporate strategic focus. And then you need to understand that in context of your individual product of where technology stands, how superior or inferior are the specs of your vehicle compared to those of your competition. And don't forget, it's competition. So if you can win the competition and produce the highest possible product contribution margin without outlaying more resources than competition, then don't go for the maximum limits. Don't go for the highest. Go for the highest as necessary to outbeat your competition only, so that you're not utilizing or wasting the resources of your firm. You may also, now to better understand your company in context of your product, all right? So this is one of the others. So we had 4 sections to focus on. The industry, just talked about the industry. Then the next part, number 2, is to talk about the company in context of your product, because you've already talked about the company and the corporate strategic focus. What you want to do now in your own individual marketing plan is to talk about your product and the scope of your product in context of the product portfolio in the company. So focus here is on your product. Ask these questions if you're not sure. You can also use these tools to see where does your product sit in the company's product portfolio. So what this Boston Consulting Group matrix does is it helps you map out and see where is your product currently sitting. Is it in the problem child section where at the moment you can see that the relative market share of your product is low? So I'm just giving you this as an example. If your product, the vehicle that you're serving, has it got a lower market share, but possibly in future you can see the micro segment with the opportunity to grow, then it might be a new product. And therefore, it's probably sitting up here in the problem child section. Or you might have just done a major upgrade to your product. So it's actually sitting up here as a problem child, because what it shows, sorry, the screen is just jumping everywhere here. What it shows is that you've just entered the market with your new product, or I'm going to try not to touch this and see if it can just stay still, because it just seems to be jumping everywhere and it's hard for me to be able to provide you with understanding. So if I move the mouse up to this quadrant here, okay, so the problem child here. If your product is new to the market, then at this point in time, you actually need to possibly boost up your marketing efforts so that you're creating that mental availability so that future years, consumers are aware of your product to make the purchase. Or could you have already boosted the marketing efforts prior to the actual launch of your new product through that major upgrade, so that consumers are already aware of your product level brand before they come into the market and buy it when it's launch time. So think about where your product is currently situated within these 4 quadrants and use market research tools to buy market reports like perceptual mapping to form part of better understanding where your product currently sits. What you might want to do is plot your car so that it's in a different color. So your car might be green. Plot that where you think it best fits in terms of this. So the horizontal axis is saying how big is the market share of your product compared to the vertical axis of saying what is the market potential. What the market potential means that the opportunity to sell in that particular micro segment. So plot where your vehicle is, and then also plot in a gray color or in a different in different colors the current existing products in your company, because then that gives the reader scope of what are you managing. No matter what product you're managing, it's important to know where its current position is. The positioning of your product is important in order for you to look after it. And then it's also good to have at the back of your mind where the existing products are in that product portfolio are also positioned. So that, for example, as an analogy, if I was using integrated marketing as the course, I would be putting that the situation for this capstone course relevant to all the courses available in your program. I would be putting this course somewhere along this relative market share of here in terms of high. Integrated marketing is a capstone. It's a compulsory course for many of the programs related to marketing, communications, commerce, brand management. And accordingly, it has a high relative market share because our customers, being our students, have to take the course. However, it has relative low market growth, meaning that the potential for expansion of the course at the moment is very capped. And because now we're coming into the new Adelaide University, accordingly, the course is now going to be redeveloped in terms of possibly next year, we might roll out a completely new simulation for next year's cohort when we kickstart a different version of the capstone course through the integration of both the Adelaide University's knowledge, theoretical foundations and methodology, equipped with Ehrenberg Bass and the University of South Australia's evidence-based approach to marketing. Once we culminate them too, we may design a new course, an upgrade integrated marketing, which means then the potential for growth will come all the way back up here. So if I was doing a marketing plan for integrated marketing this year, my course will sit here as a green bubble. I'll draw a green bubble down here, and I will also put the bubbles for all the other courses that are in third year in grey, and I'll put them around here. Those that have already been developed, I will put them somewhere up here. Those that are existing, like this course, which is what we call a legacy course that's rolled over from the previous University of South Australia, I would put them in this cash cow section because they're all ready to come up and be and receive a major upgrade to be redeveloped into this product development section. You need to think about that in context of your product. Your product will be a brand that is a car that you manage in amongst 3 or 4 other vehicles in your organization's product portfolio. Another way to understand that is in context of the product in terms of the product life cycle. So the product life cycle equally as well is another way for you to be able to see that, for example, I was just talking about integrated marketing sitting in that cash cow quadrant, meaning that this particular course is very well known. It's been existing for nearly 17 years in different forms, but the course in itself is at the maturity level. So think about your product and where it sits on the product life cycle. Have you just done a minor upgrade to it? Have you done a major upgrade to it? Is it a new product that you've launched? Where does it sit on the product life cycle? With integrated marketing, my course, it sits up here. So therefore, I am aware that next year, I'm going to go through this phase of upgrading my product so that it's going to come back and sit in terms of product development mode and come back down here again in terms of what is the revamp that's going to happen to my course so that it will still achieve a high level to be in that quadrant of high relative market growth. All right. So as a new university, who are we competing with on a global scale in terms of making sure that we produce a capstone course that enables all of our students to gain the graduate qualities of experiential team-based learning in the most competitive form, so that when you guys graduate, that we can vouch and testament that your skills are state of the art relative to any other graduate around the world that's going to graduate from a Bachelor of Business or Bachelor of Commerce degree specializing in marketing. That's what, in context of your product, what upgrades are you going to do that will then sit it back around here for market growth, if that's where your current product is currently situated. So you have to think of that from the lens of your own product, okay? I'm only using as an example to demonstrate to you that this model of thinking exists in the real world. And even industry experts and professionals like myself are utilizing these magnifying glasses or marketing tools to help us make decisions about the products that we are the managers for, and how we best accommodate them to serve the consumers and add value to the consumers that we're serving. So at a university level, my focus is on my students, but for example, other products that I look at in terms of, for example, working on local government, my consumers there, or my residents there, would be the people that live in that area. How am I best able to package the resources that I work with at a local government or a council level to best meet the needs of all the residents that voted for me in order for me to become a councillor for that particular area? So in context of whatever industry you're working with, these frameworks or the marketing tools are relevant. It's just a matter of terms of saying, with that particular tool, how do I better use it to understand the industry in which I'm competing, so that I can better understand who I'm serving and what value can I add to them at the most minimal cost to my company, and the maximum fee that I could charge, or pricing that I can charge, so that my company gains the maximum profit. But equally, my company or my brand has to give them value. Value for the customer is very important, because that's the price that you want them to be paying for. Now, let me skip and go into, so I won't go into competitors and customers, because very similarly within those quadrants, the expectation is for you to go through and better understand your product using these marketing analysis tools. So to better understand your competitors and your customers, you might want to use Porter's 5 forces to understand the price sensitivity or the bargaining power of these particular frameworks that have been adopted to better understand your product and how it's competing, and those people that are buying you in terms of both the primary micro segment and the secondary micro segments. You can read more into these models based on having a look at the textbooks or the referencing down here in Hubbard and Beamish. There's probably upgraded versions of their textbooks, or you can also revert back to the Marion Wood textbook that's been recommended in this course. That will also talk to you about Porter's 5 forces and how to understand the bargaining power of the different forces that pull upon your product. So if you think about your product existing in here, there will be systematic forces pulling upon your product. And therefore, when you're making decisions about your product's pricing, product upgrades, the promotional efforts, and where it's going to be placed, when you're thinking about the 4 Ps for your product, it's not a linear decision. It's actually very dynamic, and because you're operating in a stochastic market. And that is because every stakeholder, which are the arms of Porter's 5 forces, are pulling upon your product because they want what's in their best interest. Your buyers here are wanting your product combination at the lowest possible price. You're trying to offer them the most value, but also trying to charge them the highest possible price. Your competition want more of the market share. They want to steal from the market share that you have, and they want to grow of their own. Then you've also got secondary competition, which are the substitutes. So that this is your secondary and third micro segments that potentially will also be buying your product if you're And particularly, that's why you do not want yourself to be under supply. If you run out of stock, it's very likely that your competition will not only divert to experiencing the competitor brand, but they may also go towards the substitute brands that exist in that industry. And then the other supplier that you're pulling upon are the dealerships or those showrooms that are selling your brand relative to all the other brands in the industry. So with dealerships, what is the bargaining power for them to be able to get more training and development or so that their staff better understand about your product and the brands that they're selling? And what about the incentives for the dealerships in terms of dealer discounting? Do you need to offer them dealer discounting? So that more discounting as an incentive that you're offering to the dealerships, the more it pulls upon your company's product portfolio in terms of the pricing model, that you're giving away more, so it's less for you. It really needs to come at a balance of asking, what's in it for me, what's in it for my brand, and what's in it for our company. And then I'm going to finish it off here with looking at the SWOT analysis. Everything that you've written in section 3A, this is really important to think about. Everything that you've written in section 3A through those 4 quadrants that we talked about today, the company in relation to your product, the industry in terms of industry outlook and economic news, your competition, which are your rivals, and your customers or the micro segments that are buying your vehicle. With those, the information that you end up choosing to put in section 3A of your situation analysis, there should be nothing new that you summarize from there to put into the SWOT analysis. The SWOT analysis is basically the end of the funnel before you choose to, if you imagine this as a funnel where you've now sifted through the data, which is at the top of the funnel, you're letting drive through the useful parts of information to feed into your situation analysis, which are those 4 quadrants that we talked about today in today's webinar. And then you're going to target down and funnel in just the summary. The summary is in the form of a SWOT analysis. There should be nothing new in the SWOT analysis. Anything that you include in the SWOT analysis should have already been talked about in your situation analysis. So you're extracting from your situation analysis the information by asking these 4 questions. What I wrote down in my situation analysis, does that help profit or was that harmful to my profit? And when I talk about profit, I'm mainly focused on, at a product level, your product contribution margin. If it's helpful to my product contribution margin, then it was possibly a strength or an opportunity. If it was harmful or had an impediment to my profit or my product contribution margin, then it's possibly going to sit in the weaknesses or the threats category of the SWOT analysis. So reread your situation analysis and extract from there the elements that you've already written down in terms of your analysis or the diagnosis of what's going on. So these are facts. It's based on facts. You're not predicting anything yet. It's based on the existing data that's been generated from StratZim that you've already incurred as a result of decisions from the start up to 5. You're asking yourself, what I've included in that situation analysis, what is helpful to my profit or my product contribution margin? And if it's internal and it's within your control, you list that under strength. If it's outside of your control, you put that under an opportunity because it's helpful to your product contribution margin, but it's something for you to consider that you've observed in the systematic patterns, but it's outside of your control. So you've observed that the price of gasoline is going down. Is that an opportunity for your vehicle or not? All right. It depends on if you've got a big car or a small car, and to put that under the opportunities. And equally, the converse of that is if there are elements that are within your control that's causing your product contribution margin to decrease, that's say pricing factor, or whether it's to do with the elements that are inside, so your product upgrades, the technology of your firm, those are things that are within your company's control. Then you will list them down here as a weakness, and also outside threats. So outside threats is, are you aware from your situation analysis that possibly there will be other competition that will be coming in? You just want to put in the key highlights here in the situation, in the SWOT analysis. Extracting from your situation, it feeds as a summary into the SWOT analysis in a very succinct form. So here is an example of how we've been able to bullet point from this is just one bullet point each. So within a SWOT analysis, you might have 3 to 5 bullet points as a summary of the key things that you've identified from your situation analysis that are helpful or harmful to your product contribution margin. And you've also been able to segment out, is it controllable or uncontrollable, as to whether it sits as a strength or an opportunity versus is it a weakness versus a threat. And then you put it into a table or a summary of the SWOT analysis, which forms the summary for section 3B of your marketing plan. So thank you so much for joining me today on the complete review of this analysis section of your marketing plan.